Welcome to another episode of Elevate Hotel Design, the podcast that explores the latest innovations, trends, and key players shaping the future of hospitality design. I'm your host, Lorraine Francis with Cadiz Collaboration, and today we're going to talk about the topic that's essential to both design and wellness, water quality. Joining us today is Mike Sale, Director of Home Water Systems at Delta Faucet Company. And for over 70 years, Delta Faucet Company has been at the forefront of transforming the way we interact with water, not just in kitchen and bathrooms, but through the entire home. And Mike will share how they're addressing the critical issues of water quality and sustainability in the hospitality industry, as well as enhancing the guest experience through better water systems. I'm excited to introduce Mike Sale, who's worked at Delta Innovations team. And Mike is deeply knowledgeable about water treatment systems. And today we'll explore how Delta solutions are helping hotels meet the growing demand for wellness and sustainability while offering clean, high quality water to their guests. So, Mike, thanks for coming along today. And we're just excited to share your background. And I've had the privilege of going to the New York Fashion Week last week and really doing the taste testing of water. And they said your name, and I'm like, oh, I've got to interview him and I want to know more why Delta has this water sommelier at their at their company. So thanks for joining us on that.
Thank you so much for having me. That whole story has been an unexpected journey for me too. So I think we're all pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. How long have you been in Delta? Because I feel like when I was over at the Briso, the fashion show, it was like everyone there from Judd and innovation team and design team, industrial designers and sales. I've been there a long time. So it really just seems like this family really company between Briso and between Delta and the major, shareholders of that.
Yeah, I've been there about 14 years and there's definitely some of that feel of a company that has continued to evolve and grow, but lots of people that have really grown with the industry. And I think that's helpful because we get that baseline knowledge, but then we expand as Delta's growing into new spaces like what we're talking about today.
Yeah. So have you always been on the innovation team or you said you've been there for 14 years.
I've always been on a product development role. I like building things. I moved into the innovation group not too long after joining Delta. And that was just based on a passion of, I still want to do that building. I want to see those early ideas. And I just want to spend even more time with the consumer, with that end user that's touching, using, changing their lives with our product.
Yeah. And like just improving water systems for both home and commercial space. What are some of your key responsibilities that you oversee? And how does that reflect on like the emphasis of Delta and their focus on wellness and sustainability in the market today?
Yeah. For the past, it's been about 5 years probably. We've been circling on what should our company's role be in the space of, we can call it water quality, we can call it water treatment, and really ensuring that we had this laser focus again on, you'll hear that again and again on the consumer. What does that end person need and the customers, the channels in which they use our products. And I feel so proud that we really have our arms around that and then are working to bring a portfolio of products to serve that to market. And because of that time, we can speak very well to the consumer needs, to the technical landscape of the water quality world in the US, and then solutions available today and what we're bringing out. And along that journey, took a sidebar down a path to become a certified water sommelier as well. So we have that packet.
Yeah. I always have trouble pronouncing that word. So
Oh, yeah.
I was like
Yeah.
fumbling on it earlier. So it was a tricky one. So yeah. But I think like water quality in general, like as a wellness trend, I think if we go to Flint, Michigan, like what happened
Mhm.
there, what happened in the community. And I think we even talked about the idea of just the pharmaceutical industry and plastics, what's been going on with our water. What's some history of that you research for kind of innovation and what you want to do with it?
Yeah, I think there's a couple paths here. And I think one, again, we can start on the consumer path is as a whole, consumers have an increasing distrust in the water quality out of the tap. And you referenced a few reasons that distrust has been building. But when pressed, when we say, what are you worried about? Or what would you like specifically removed or changed? They don't really know. They have a few hot button things like lead or PFAS that's in the news, but the common answer we get is take out anything that could harm. And when we look at now the system of water, the whole flow of water, I think there's three big buckets, right? There's the breaks. These are the quality things that shouldn't happen, like Flint, where through a series of mistakes, lead gets in the water. That's a serious break. And we expect that could happen again, but those hopefully become fewer and further between. There's this middle ground that I find really interesting, which is, we'll call it where science is still evolving. things like microplastics, PFAS, you're seeing now as new regulations and rules are coming out about these, but we still don't quite understand what the long-term effects might be on the human body. I think there's this piece of, again, there's these breaks that are known problems. We need these gone. There's these other things that we know are in the water. We don't know what the implications of that are. And then I think there's a fun ladder on top of that. This is the do no harm side of the equation. There's a fun ladder on top of that of now, how can we make it better? After we take the things out, how can we add things back in that make it taste better or minerals that are helpful for your body? And I really have a lot of fascination on that lens as well.
Yeah. But still going back to where it's been like the shift in wellness, I'm going to say from COVID, I'm tired of that explanation. But I think there
Yeah.
has been the shift towards what you drink. I'm from New York originally. So I think always when I'm in New York, the water tastes great. And I love the water. So, and I know also I lived in Florence for a long time ago for a year. And there's something about that pasta and whatever water they use that I sometimes I just can't replicate it. I can't. I'm in search of the perfect Italian restaurant that has that water that was made with that pasta.
I love
So
that.
so I'm just yeah, so I'm just curious. And even at home, my husband and I are like, I always use just like I'm down in Orange County now. I use like just the water from our faucet for our coffee in the morning. And he's always, you gotta use a filtered water. So it's just that kind of funny how people taste it and people think it's different for going from coffee to going from just drinking it, whether people want bubbly water at the restaurant or they just want tap water. So like where do you see that has been getting elevated for people wanting different, better quality water or being much more conscious about it?
Yeah, I think, and maybe we'll put those two buckets into one of just like, I think as a whole, everybody wants take out the things that are either known or could over time be bad for my body. But when you talk about what someone wants, that subjectivity we just see again and again. I love it. We've done tons of water tastings and people that join us land on all sides of the map. And I think you said it growing up in New York, the water had a certain condition. I do think people at a young age, whatever they associated at that point of this is water. I had a well, I drank from the hose all the time. My water was softened. So it had that maybe hint of salt to it. That drives what they're looking for today. So we're trying to find that balance of where are things that this is generally going to be good by most people. And then where in the future do you start to split off into customization because people's tastes are really disparate. I love that thread you brought up on cooking and coffee too. We've done a lot of experimentation of water in coffee and there is a sweet spot of you want some minerals, but not too many that are going to draw out some of the flavors in coffee. You don't want things like chlorine that's going to introduce something you don't want in there. You generally don't want to use distilled water that's empty. And you don't want to use water necessarily that's off the charts with hardness or other things in it too. So there are dials that we can guide people towards that are big into food, coffee, brewing beer, and even we think about plants and things like that. So there's a lot of fun, I call them little passion breakouts that people have a lot of passion about. We want to guide them into the, the recipe that works best for them.
And even like I got my little gifty from Swell with burrito. So, but like that whole idea of traveling with water, I think it was always like, whenever you travel and you got your $7 Fiji water or Denali water at the airport, stuff like that. And it's like always that thing of like, gotta empty it before you walk through security and then get through there. But I think going to filling stations that really, well, like filling stations weren't really around a couple of years ago. It wasn't really as accessible, but now at the airports, you could always get a filling station of kind of LK or something like that. And
Mhm.
kind of that's been changing to going to a hotel and really getting to hydration stations and that kind of being shifting because also that takes away revenue from the hotel. But are they trying to sell the nicer bottles so someone has it? And I know like the one hotel does a great job and they have a beautiful bottle and like their filling stations are in the room. So even how you see, so that's going to, you guys do reverse osmosis versus just going to an LK system and just having a water filter.
Right.
Curious where you see that kind of has that changed over the past years?
Yeah, it's breaking into two parts. And the part I love the trend of, I'll call them filling stations, but you could also call it less plastic bottles, right? Just the
Yeah.
movement away from single use plastic into some type of water that you understand is at minimum safe. And I think that regardless of the solution, that is a very positive move forward. There's just tons of detrimental environmental effects from all this single use plastic. And I'd love to keep migrating away from that. when we talk about what is in the filling station, my favorite thing about water is the story of some of these natural waters. And you did the tasting, right? You get the Three
Yeah.
Bays water that rainfall in New Zealand, and 2,000 years later, they bottle it in Australia. It's traveled under the ocean. I think a story like that, and that's a natural water, that we're not doing that. Man isn't doing that. It's happened over time just by nature's setup. But I think that story enables us to elevate water and think about it as more than just input that makes our bodies go. And I think that theme can then be carried over to exchanging revenue for selling a bottle of water into something more reusable, like a filling station. But that filling station can have a story of, we've taken this water, it's local water, we've cleaned the water with this process. And I think reverse osmosis is a great process for that. And then we've done something we call remineralization, where you're adding healthful, good tasting minerals back into the water. And we've done this other thing and put in these specific minerals that we feel are good for the taste, or good for, again, the mouthfeel of it, if you will. And I think that, when done well, can be artful and leave you feeling good about that, again, without introducing these single-use plastics. And so I think that's a wonderful potential cycle for that.
Yeah. So maybe for me, because I think not everyone knows what a reverse osmosis
Mhm.
system is and why have you been working on that from a long time, or is that kind of a newer system you've been like evaluating technology of it? It's gotten smarter. So that'd be interesting to know why you guys.
Yeah, and I mentioned we've been digging around for years, and early in the journey, there was a definite kind of, all arrows are pointing towards residential. I'm sorry, residential. All arrows are pointing towards reverse osmosis, as we call it, the gold standard of
Mhm.
filtration. And when we think about filtration, you're either eliminating something with possibly a chemical process, or again, the way that helps my brain is, a lot of it is just, you're pushing water through holes. And the
Mhm.
smaller the holes, the less things that get through. And reverse osmosis is virtually the smallest holes. It looks like a roll of wrapping paper. If you can imagine this roll of paper rolled up, and the water gets pressed through this wrapping paper, and out one side comes pure water, and whatever's left, anything that wasn't water in the middle, gets flushed away. And so the premise of reverse osmosis isn't new. Reverse osmosis has been around for years. And typically, what we would call a conventional system, you have a big tank, it gravity feeds the water into it, fills the tank, you pull from the faucet, and you use the water in the tank. The challenge is, after a period of time, you will drain the tank. And now the tank is empty, and the tank needs time for things to drain back in there.
Mhm.
This is where a new technology called tankless reverse osmosis, that takes that same fundamental process, that membrane that the water goes through, and it pushes the water through it with pumps instead of gravity. And what that enables now is that we can do a very real-time continuous fill. They rate these systems by gallons per day, 600, 800 gallons per day, because you can turn them on and they will run until you don't want them to run anymore. There is no tank to empty out. And getting into the nuances and the weeds, what we found in this space was some people launching these tankless systems, but the way they had designed them, they weren't checking all the standards that reverse osmosis is supposed to. They were falling short on a few key contaminant removals and tests. So we did then spend a year plus completely redesigning the unit, and the Delta and Brizo systems that are out on market do have our proprietary sort of setup in there.
Okay. Okay. And that system is so just could go like under a counter and it's pretty small. I think just
It looks for those in that generation, it looks like a 1995 CPU kind of box.
yeah.
So what you hit on, I think the stat is like 75% space savings from it. But that was one, as we've shown to, remodelers, builders, they're looking at this saying, "Oh my God, thank you." Because we couldn't fit this. We didn't know where to put it. And now that it's condensed in that box that just runs up to the faucet, it has more versatility.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you really see that kind of in commercial and hospitality that it could be used in suites and it could
Mhm.
be used in a public area. Not having that LK filler station, that's a possibility. So you're giving a better quality water to the guests. And then I feel like hydration stations are perfect applications for that. 'Cause that's always something per floor and stuff like that. I think I wanted the ice machine with the reverse osmosis together.
It's interesting. I wish I'd pre-thought of that because I don't know enough of what kind of flow rate those ice machines need. But in a home, you absolutely can tee the line and that continuous flow will just run over to your refrigerator ice machine. So we'll put a pin in that. But if they don't need high flow at a given time and it's more of a slow fill of some tank in the ice machine, you could tee that into there too. And again, I think it keeps coming back to that story of this. We are doing our stewardship by using, we'll call it local water sources, but we're also going that extra mile with a very robust system to ensure that the word everything is sometimes a dangerous word, but RO is agnostic in that it takes out, I'll say, most everything. And that's what it's very good for. When we talk to consumers that are saying, I don't know what to be afraid of, we would guide them towards RO and say, no problem. Whatever is in there, RO is going to stop it. And then after the RO, you can, again, add those minerals back in that some people do find they really like.
Yeah, yeah. So you also, what's the maintenance of it? So it's really, I mean, something you plug in, so you have to have an outlet for the tankless,
Yeah,
and then really, how often are you changing the filter? How, like, compared to other filters in commercial spaces?
that's a great question. Yes. Yeah. You need electricity because that will power the pumps, and you need water and steady source. It can actually pull from the tank because that's what the pumps do. They pull the water, but you hook it into a water line. And then we did push for I'll say new to industry. A lot of these systems have multiple filters that you change at 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And we synced everything up on this. There's two main filters and a small pre-filter, and they're synced to turn on a 2-year clock together. They give you some warning when that's coming with some audible beeps, but
Mhm.
they're designed so that you're not getting down under the cabinet every 6 months. I think in this type of setting, that hopefully takes a little bit of burden off of a maintenance team.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I feel like, I don't know if we're kind of talking about pricing, but I think the range of the price that I talked to Emily about it wasn't really that. It was like $1,200 or something like that. So it wasn't really that expensive, just for that kind of that value that it could bring to the guests, and for hotels to be able to give that to their guests, and having this a better water system seemed really valuable as a guest experience.
Yeah, I really like it for, again, not, and I would never, I would think when you're doing that for the guests, again, you want to put that flag down of, we did not just buy the easiest or most accessible filtration system to say we were doing filtration. We went for, again, this is water that you can rest easy as you're here with us and enjoying your stay, that you can drink and will be safe and baselined, which is interesting too, thinking about guests coming from different places, that you've got that same thing of, "Oh, I expect water to taste like this." I've certainly traveled and tried the water, out of the tap, and not that it was bad, just this is very different than what I have where I am from. And so I think there's something to that of, I guess, like pushing it that baseline. And you can put them in glass bottles, have them in refrigerators too, and do some different, I'll call it localized branding like that too, of this is our water with the story of here's where it came from.
Yeah, no, I love that. That the whole storytelling of it is perfect. Let's go back to the word I can't pronounce. Becoming a certified water sommelier. Sommelier. I'm not like I was ever good at French, so it's kind of respond those words. When did you become like? Where did you even find out there was a certification for that? So
I had a colleague send me a video clip from a Netflix television show called
uh
Down to Earth, Zac Efron. And there's
okay,
a gentleman named Martin Reese, who is a water sommelier, and he had guided them through a tasting. And their reactions were so visceral. I couldn't believe it. And so we ordered a box. Martin ended up zooming in and guiding my team and myself through the tasting. And you mentioned you experienced this last weekend, and it really, I think it's hard. I think it's impossible to leave that and not say, I agree. Water tastes very different, and and it's interesting at a minimum. I don't think anybody leaves without saying that. You don't have to like them all. You don't have to like any of them. But for me, it turned on a light bulb or curiosity thread that I could not turn off. And so I spent a lot of that year trying to learn what I could about the science behind why water has these different tastes, what happens with the natural waters, and then later found that Martin and another sommelier named Michael Masha host a course where you can become certified. And so just from that, again, there's some personal passion. There's clearly some work ties in there. I went through that course and lots of tasting and science experiments and discussions with them to evolve it. I've always said it's not as much, at least for me, it's not as much of a party trick of put 3 glasses in front of me and I'll tell you what they are. I think Martin has a really sharp taste and could do that. Mine is much more of tell me what's in this water and I'll guide you through what we can look for as we taste, what might work well with it, what you might expect from it. And I love that. There's a community of people that have gone through this training all over the world, and they come from professional industry. Some are distributors or have the source of a water they're bottling and trying to share with the world. And then others are just, we have theologists, we have chefs, we have coffee shop owners. It's just a fascinating ecosystem or tribe of people that have enough passion that they followed this thread, but the angles at which we all come at the world of water just really makes me happy.
Yeah, yeah. No, I thought it was fascinating. I think it'd be great to actually, I think when Emily and I were talking about it, was like that whole idea of having you come out for any WH event or just a designer event. So I think from our pre-shows, the New York Fashion Week was 15 other designers and you weren't there, but we got to try all these waters. So is that kind of the same process that you do? If maybe just talk about some of the brands I'll give you my opinion from tasting some of those, but I think it'd be great from like the first things that we talked about total dissolve solids, TDS scores. So that was a number of kind of
Mhm.
understanding it a little better. But maybe just talk about like how you walk people through the tasting.
Yeah, yeah, and you're correct. We've done a little of a train the trainer and have a small group that can orchestrate these, and it's fun. We all keep learning from each other and sharing the experiences. But generally, when you do a water tasting, your goal would be to walk a spectrum of different tastes. We're not, yeah, and you could have one where we're trying to taste the difference between these 10 very similar waters, but generally for that first time taste experience, we really like this. We're going to do a spectrum. And so you mentioned TDS, total dissolved solids. That is a measurement in shorthand of how much stuff is in water. It translates to milligrams per liter or parts per million. You would, if you were scientifically solving for that, you would boil the water down and you'd measure what's left. And in our water out of our tap, you can think of things like calcium, magnesium. These are the minerals that are often going to build up that TDS. So
So actually, so when the RO, does that bring it to zero?
it's not zero. Like distillation is about the zero process where you're turning it to vapor and bringing it back down. But RO is going to bring it down, call it close to that, depending on what your incoming was. But it's a great question. Exactly what RO does. RO rebaseline it, and then the remineralization puts them back in. You can add another chunk of it back in. What we do see that I always have to mention is sometimes people shorthand TDS for water quality, i.e. my TDS is low, this water is safe, my TDS is high, this water is unsafe, and that's not fair. The waters that you try, some have TDS in the thousands, and they're perfectly safe. And you can have also a very small amount of TDS, but if it's of a dangerous mineral, that would be hazardous to your health. So you can use it in something like an RO to measure what was the input and what was the output. It's useful shorthand, but I need that PSA on sub 50 TDS does not mean the water is safe. 3,000 TDS does not mean it's unhealthy either.
That's good to know.
And again, what it doesn't tell, to build on that piece, it doesn't tell us what's in the water. And so that's why the tasting's so fun, because one water might have 300 TDS, but it's all calcium, and another has 300 and it's heavy silica. And those are going to taste very different, even though they have the same measurement of things in it that are not water. So the general walk is we'll start with some still waters and migrate up that chain, ending with 3 days, which is I think around 1,300 TDS. And just, it has 26 different things in it from that journey it collects from the earth. And then moving into carbonated waters and doing that same walk up from 3 different waters there.
Yeah. So I know we
The
started with the Fiji, and I think that was kind of like when we asked the group, it was like, what does everyone like? There was a lot, probably from the 15, probably 5 or 6, but shouted out Fiji, what they go for. So that was a little bit the standard of that's good water. So that was interesting to see everyone's comfort level of why do they pick that one versus someone said Tanzani or whatever. It was funny. Is that just coming from the tap right there? So from, oh,
well,
we're from
Fiji, Fiji, well, and there is a distinction, I think, between when you're buying a bottle of water, between a natural water that is often protected by its source. They're often in
Mhm.
pressurized underground sources. And so man-made contaminants aren't getting in there. So they don't need to go through a big filtration process and strip out whatever they naturally picked up versus an Aquafina or a Dasani. Those are commercially reverse osmosis and put into a plastic bottle. So that gives you some of that taste difference between them. Fiji shows up on, I forget who did the study, but it is the US most preferred bottled water by taste. But it's worth noting it's not a blind tasting. So people
Mhm.
know it's Fiji and it's a beautiful bottle. It, takes you to
Marketing
the
down.
beach.
Exactly.
Uh-huh. But it has a high natural silica in it. And I think it does give it a little hint of sweet that
Mhm.
tends to attribute to that. So I do think with the marketing, there's good natural water behind it. But like you said, people do that's generally the one just from a unbiased, what do you like? We hear people gravitating that way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think the second one we tried was so that was on a TDS was around 220 or something like that.
Wow, perfect.
Yeah.
Look at you.
That's, I remember writing some notes down. And then we tried second was Icelandic, which is also a beautiful
Hmm.
bottle. So what's the story about that? But I know that had TDS of 62, which I didn't really know what that meant. But I know it's just definitely tasted different. I feel like I like the Icelandic better than the Fiji once I tasted it. I can't remember why. Hmm.
I think, and I mentioned that my favorite thing on doing these is the adjectives. I love or descriptors. I love hearing people describe water in sometimes fun ways that are right on the nose, and sometimes in ways that just make me giggle. But I think with Icelandic, what you're getting, that's again, we're down in that lower TDS level. I use words like crisp and clean. It's not down to like, when you get down to like zeros and single digits, sometimes you'll feel a dryness in your mouth even as you're drinking it.
Oh,
And it's not really stripping minerals from you. It's more the perception of that. But that's a real feeling that you can have as that TDS goes lower and lower. Some people like that. Some people
mhm.
do not. And again, we're never here to be anything other than guides and to helping people understand why they like or don't like certain things. But I think Icelandic's in a nice sweet spot where it's got just enough to have a little bit going on there, but it's very clean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I think the third one was the Hilden. So I didn't know that was like the Queen's water. I think I've never tasted that before. So it's okay. Everyone's gonna like it because it's the Queen's water. And I don't remember like we didn't like it. I didn't like it preferably, but I think some people were like drinking it. It was also fun as like of being in a winery and people like spitting it out or putting it into a junk pail or something like that. Cause like really just drink it. So but definitely people were had a reaction to some of them and they're just like, no, I'm dead. I'm just spilling it out. And so
Yeah, Hilden's fun, and that comes from the UK out of a well, and then it's carbonated. And I think what makes Hilden special is the bubbles are so small, so it is a good bridge for people. We have a lot of I don't drink carbonated water, but this works for me, and
yeah,
so I think they
yeah,
did a nice, I would call it a hybrid, a point there in the middle.
yeah.
That one I really like, and I think the Queen did as well for its great food pairing. It's easy. It's not going to take anything away. It just will work well with everything.
Yeah. No, it must be actually because my memory of it is not that it was carbonated. So that's interesting because I just like it was I just had it and it was like, so that's interesting.
There's a still version too, so that might explain this. Maybe they do the still. So we'll do the carbonated next time.
Yeah. Mm. But that was like around in the 300s. So that was it. And then
Mhm.
the next one we had was definitely a bubbly. It's Gerolsteiner.
In my in my non-native German pronunciation,
Gerolsteiner.
I'll say Gerolsteiner.
Gerolsteiner. Yeah. Yeah. I think my son loves that one. So I always feel like I went to Trader Joe's and he said, no, get that. Get us that, get 12 pack. So we're always having that one at our house. We do bubbly. Yeah.
Well, some of the higher TDS mineral waters come from Spain or Europe or Germany, and can be harder to get if that's what you were looking for. And yeah, Gerolsteiner's wonderfully accessible at Trader Joe's or Fresh
Mhm.
Thyme or Whole Foods. And it's so yeah, now you're up in that 2,500 range and just huge calcium and magnesium. I think a bottle is about 20% of your daily intake of those two. So that's where I really like a lot of the waters that are most accessible in the US, where minerals are in there only for taste. There's not anything demonstrable where you're offsetting vitamins or anything of that nature. But some of the European waters do get up to that level that there there are positive helpful effects with things
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
one amount of calcium and magnesium.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't think about that because I do take a magnesium pill sometimes when I need to get some good sleep.
Mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. And then and another one that was new to me was three bays. So where's that come from?
That's the one from Australia did you do the carbonated version at the tasting?
I don't think it was carbonated. No.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one that like it's an aquifer that is my favorite water story ever. It's an aquifer that it rains in New Zealand and this aquifer goes under the ocean. And just hearing that and like even I had to look at pictures, it still breaks my brain, but it travels on this journey over 2,000 years and it comes up in Australia where it's bottled. And that's the
Oh,
one of the higher TDS of a still water. When something like Gerolsteiner actually, as just a fun sidebar, it's naturally carbonated. It comes out of the earth carbonated. And I didn't know that was a thing or could be a
yeah, I didn't
thing.
know.
The water agitates on its journey. It can pick up those much higher TDS counts. And
Uh-huh.
so it's rarer for something like three bays to have such a high TDS count. And that's what makes that one special and memorable. Whether or not you love it, it's so neat.
Yeah. So I feel like I just wrote a note that was like a little more coppery taste. And that's like, what did that taste like? I wasn't like eating pennies or anything like that. So I was trying to figure out what that little twing or the metallic part was at.
Uh-huh.
So actually going back to
That,
girl side, so is it naturally carbonated like that, or do they do add additional carbonation?
no, their intent is to, and now they capture the gas and the liquid separately. Because when I first found out about this, I was picturing they like scooping it and capping it as fast as you can. But they
For
capture them.
fast.
Yeah,
Sorry.
like almost the air out. Although they bring it back together, but my understanding is they're trying to bring it back at the level it was at. And
Okay.
that
Yeah.
that that almost gives it that parity or just balance that I think something that was not carbonated is later carbonated. Sometimes the bubbles can feel a little harsher. Gerolsteiner and Vichy, Catalan were both naturally carbonated, so they have that sort of really nice. It feels natural, for
Yeah.
lack of a better one. The three bays, we've done one piece with this before too, and if you eat it with like sushi or fish, the only way I could describe it is it like turned the volume up on the dish. I've never experienced something quite like that, and we talk a lot about wine pairings with meals, and I think it's very interesting as you lean into these, again, heavily mineralized or higher TDS waters that they can really play and influence what you're eating.
Yep. No, exactly. And I think that led us to the last one because I was just traveling in Spain before Milan Salone
Well,
and I was in Barcelona and Valencia. So it was Vichy Catalan. Yeah. And I
I
think
one of my favorites, but it's a big hitter if you're not quite ready for it.
no, but there was definitely like a visceral reaction of the group, and everyone was like, and I'm a salt, freak. So I love salt. So, and like, so I think that for me, it was like, this was fantastic. But I think half the group was like, oh my God, no way. And they just like, spilled it out. And it was just like, but it was like interesting to see a reaction. And there's a visceral reaction to, no, this is water. It tastes terrible or whatever. And I'm just like, wow, this tastes good. So,
And I've been to Spain and you can buy it for less than a couple of euros on the shelf. So it's very accessible there. And I think to your point, one, we will serve the waters at the tastings usually at room temperature. That's going to draw more flavor out, but you likely have it at minimum like a cellar temperature or chilled as you're having it at a restaurant. But that's a perfect one to just imagine yourself in the local area and with some of the local foods. And again, a heavy like cured meat or something to that effect just accents it so well with that. Somebody called it that's the big bold red of the water tastings. That
with your
real
sardines right next to it and your olives. Yeah.
exactly. It needs something big to go with it to pair. It's also a great mixer for cocktails or a drinks too. It just adds a lot of uniqueness to it that you don't need much else in there to make a memorable drink.
Yeah, yep, yep. No, and for me, when I've been like working on my mocktails of like 95% like alcohol free right now. So it's a whole different exploration of even just getting some tonics and some things that are more interesting, or I've been trying like lighters and some other ones that just this herbal, and it's just been a whole new experience. And what is the ice that you put with it? And like, how do you get that?
Yes.
So it's something interesting to try out is that. And that had the highest TDC. So that was at 3,000 or close to 3,000.
Yeah, TDS of about 3,000, and I always throw on as a reference, the ocean's about 30,000, just because I think
Okay.
sometimes with the numbers, like, how do we ground this? Distilled water tries to be zero. It's very hard for water to stay zero. Water wants to absorb everything. That's osmosis, and that's the absolute process of reverse osmosis is taking systems to try to reverse, not Vichy or Gerolsteiner, these wonderful waters that weren't touched by man and preserved in their location, but waters that did pick up undesirable things on their journey. That sort of brings us back to that circle of we we do mechanically want to reverse that on some.
Yep.
That's where those systems come in.
Yeah. What's the source of the Vichy in Spain? Where does it come from? What's the
It, it I want to say it's an aquifer that also has the natural carbonation. And they've got a neat, I've never been, but they've got a neat spa. And we think some of the history of European mineral or even medicinal waters are around some of these spas that had these hot springs that people would pull out these waters and use them and in essence start bottling them and transporting them to people for health reasons. And that started some of the movement of what we're living in today.
Yep. Yep, yeah. No, it's good. Are there any ones that we hadn't like we didn't try? Because I know she even like when we were like getting them and putting them in table, she was like, some of them are hard to get. Are you getting off Amazon or you got to go to a special store? So it's hard to actually even do the water tasting without like how do you find that?
There's such a wonderful world of options out there. There's delightful waters that aren't exportable, so you can only find them when you're traveling. I live in St. Louis. I have a very nice international grocery store in town, and they have a wonderful selection. But that would be my general. Anybody interested in exploring more, you can pay attention to the bottles at any grocery store you're at. But typically, an international grocery store will have any selection of waters from around the world, and you can gauge a little from the TDS and the ingredients list. But I'd say just go buy some things and try them, and it's a fun way to experience things from around the world.
Yeah, no, exactly. It'd be cool if there's like the water store, like the wine store, just that has that different section.
I know a lot of people that would love to elevate water to that level, myself
Uh-huh.
included. Well,
And
we want to do our
turning
part
as an
to
idea.
no, keeping it for our distributors specifically that manage moving that water because Freebase is from Australia, she's from Spain. And so that's the hardest part is getting it efficiently and cleanly from there to other drinkers.
Yeah, no, that's actually fascinating. I like that. So we'll do another when you come to LA next with Briso, we'll do another taste test. That'll be great to do it. Like,
That sounds good.
yeah. So just last, what with Delta is big on sustainability, even just like their water efficiency. We talked about different thoughts and just the whole to kind of different the water technology that comes out. So it actually makes you feel like using less water, but it's also better
Yeah.
quality.
Yeah. Kinetics in the shower or
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's one piece we didn't talk too much about that's worth mentioning with reverse osmosis. When we capture things in the membrane, we need
Uh-huh.
to flip them, and we use water to do that. And so, reverse osmosis systems typically have I call it an efficiency rating or a waste to a waste ratio. And unfortunately, conventional systems, because again, the gravity fed, they need more water, more time. Those ratios can be like 4 to 1 in the sense of to get 1 gallon of good water, you're putting 4 down the drain. And that's not desirable, right? We're trying to move into a more sustainable space. The tankless systems, because of the pumps, basically invert that, where you're getting 2 gallons of clean water for just using one to flush those contaminants down. Because those contaminants have to come out, and we need water to do that. And we're just continuing to try to tighten that efficiency. But tankless does a really nice job of flipping the true perception of the industry on its head. And we ran the numbers, I think, after a trade show, just some napkin math in the back of a Uber over the lifespan, the 2-year lifespan of the product. I think it's like 10,000 bottles of water. And just when you start to think about even just the cost, I think the ROI is there on the system, but the magnitude of what that looks like on the impact of the world, it's really a wonderful thing of can we drive people towards don't get the bottle of the processed water, use a system to clean it and then get it right there on the source. I think
Yeah.
natural water, Gerolsteiner and Vichy, they're separate. You can treat them like a bottle of wine. That's a nice treat to do for various things, but not to knock any specific brands, but there are brands out there that Smart Water, Life Water. This is water that has gone through an RO system and has had minerals added back in, which is exactly what our system can do at a hotel, in a hotel room. And so that's part of that story arc again of you like this because of the taste. We have done that same thing just on a smaller footprint so that it's local and we're not creating a track.
Yep, yep, yep. So I think your cartridges right now, you've picked a certain mineral level that you guys have taste tested and you like, but could someone like customize it if they really are somewhere and they really like Vichy or they want that specialty and I want more magnesium and I want this into it. You could adjust that.
Yeah, you're speaking my language for the future. As of today, and the remineralizer is an option. You don't need to do it because, as you said, some people really, I like the taste of just the RO water. I want that clean, crisp. And then some people say, no, I want a little baseline of minerals. Ours is just calcium and magnesium today, and we have balanced that out for what we think is a good level of, we'll call it universal taste. So I see a future where we're starting to push boundaries on that. I'd love a day when we can have the Gerolsteiner,
Yeah.
Gerolsteiner partridge. But as of today at launch, there's this what I call the universal one. But
Okay.
when you talk
And is
about
the
the future,
universal one a little more towards the Fiji water, or kind of what have you created? So in terms of your taste. Hmm.
yeah, it tends to add 100 or 150 TDS. So you're sitting about there at Fiji. But again, the focus on this one's just the calcium and the magnesium, which is what is in Gerolsteiner at just an extremely high level. And again, that very specifically is just they're good, healthful electrolytes technically. And they do produce that. These are classic hardness minerals too, that somebody that grew up knowing hard water wants just that little base there. And again, I mentioned even on coffee, that's just enough in there that now the beans are really going to produce a more powerful result of what they were trying to do.
I know one person was in our audience. They were from, I feel like they were from Texas, and they were talking about just the minerals in like their shower water. So are you doing anything like, I can go back to the Demi Moore, did she use Fiji water for her bath? I don't really know if that's true or not. But are you looking into that experience as probably more in a high-end residential, even a high-end hotel, like an Amman or something like that, to really deliver that kind of, to wash your hair would be actually a good
Yeah.
way to have initiatives.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. It's within this look of water systems. That's what we're trying to take that step back of moving beyond the fixtures and looking at the water within the house. And shower is a perfect space. A high percentage of municipalities around the country use chlorine in the water intentionally. And because it's designed to, as the water travels through the pipes, prevent things from growing that don't want to be there. But generally, we don't want chlorine on our hair or on our bodies. So we're launching next month a filtration system. It sits behind the shower head. So it's independent of whatever type of H2O kinetics or other shower head you'd like to use. And it's going to take that chlorine out, particularly for those sensitive to it. We've had a few field trials of people that have felt dramatic improvements on their skin and hair, and that makes us very happy.
Okay. Yeah. Good. I want to try that one. So that's good. But not quite for the bathtub yet. So not quite there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, and that we're looking at what that should look like as well. You got much higher volume of water as you play
Yeah.
there, but yeah, starting with the shower, and again, really stressing that we don't want to force you into this shower head or this one. You pick your faucet, you pick your shower. That experience is yours and yours alone, and then we will provide something behind that to ensure that it's giving you the quality water you deserve.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. Good. Thanks for just a great conversation. Is there anything else like on the innovation side you want to share? Or anything like coming up for you?
I really like all of the walks. I'm so happy we got to play so deeply in taste. I think we do these tastings as a call it thought leadership or forward thinking. We want to continue challenging of how should we think about water? How should we treat and respect and manage water? And so I appreciate the opportunity to just elevate that and have people all kind of looking a little differently next time they walk into the store and pick out a bottle.
Yeah, no, definitely for me, it definitely gave me that a new perspective. So I really appreciate that. So it had to really do that. So that was fun.
Good.
Cool. Cool. But thanks so much for being on our show today. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great talking. Thanks for making the time.
So today's discussion was highlighting how water quality and sustainability are becoming integral to wellness in the hospitality industry, from reducing plastic waste to improving the guest experience through clean, high water quality. Delta's playing a key role in shaping the future of water in resorts. And for our listeners, don't forget to tune in to the next episode of Elevate Hotel Design, where we'll continue to explore more trends and innovations that are shaping the future of hospitality. And be sure to subscribe and stay informed on the latest industry insights. Thank you so much.